welcome to the SoxProspects.com podcast. We are the web's number one source for information on the Boston Red Sox farm system from top to bottom, from Fort Myers to Pawtucket and all stops in between. Thank you for the listen. My name is Chris Hatfield. I am the executive editor of Sox Prospects, and I am joined, as always, by our director of scouting, Ian Kundle. Ian, short season has started. It's the busiest time of year for the website. Draft signings are coming in. How are you keeping up? What's the deal?
Yeah, it's really busy right now, as you said. I've been getting back to the field, which is nice. The weather's getting good, but it's also draft signings. There's also life stuff. Got a lot of traveling I have to be doing the next couple of weeks for various things. So it's going to be a very busy schedule.
We should probably give a shout out to our boy.
Yeah.
Those who are, well, I mean, it's on Twitter. I mean, someone tweeted it. So for those of you who remember, for those of you who remember John Mioli, former, what was his? I mean, he was in ownership for a while, but I think his highest title was like senior columnist or something. But John Mioli, who now writes for the Baltimore Sun, covering the Baltimore Orioles, getting married this coming weekend. So congrats to our man John. Not that he's going to listen to this, but yeah, one of my favorite guys that's come through the site. It's always neat to see, folks who kind of got their start here make something of themselves. Damn it. But yeah, so you're going to get to check that out. That'll be fun. Yeah, lots happening. Today we're going to talk about, we've got Lowell started. Ian's gone to see the Spinners twice at LeLacheur Park. Got a lot of players to talk about. It's one of the most star-studded teams pre-draft signings that they've ever had. Easily. Yeah,
it's remarkable compared to, especially having been to Pawtucket and seeing what they have between there and Portland. It's quite a stark contrast. As I think what I want to say, I can't remember who wrote the article, but someone was talking about like a little preview, probably Alex.
It was Alex. I know the one you're talking about. Alex Spear of the Boston Globe.
He quoted some of the front office guys talking about how it's one of the better crops they've put together, and I tend to agree after seeing them for a few games.
Well, and he even had the quote in there that when you talk to talent evaluators who go see like Pawtucket and Portland, they kind of come away shaking their head a little bit sometimes just when you ask about it. So, but at any rate, it'll be good to hear about that. Also, the Dominican Summer League has started, so we're going to hit on some of the highlights. It looks like that DSL squad might be one of the most talented teams that they've had they've got two DSL teams actually, but the Red Sox signed a whole bunch of guys last year on the July 2nd signing period, and those players are making their debuts now, and some of them are really showing out. So we'll talk a little bit about them. We will also hit on some transaction action. The Red Sox signed Chris Owings, and we've got some draft signings, so we'll talk briefly about that. Very briefly about the former, but then we'll talk a little bit about the draft signings as well. So, and plus, of course, as always, we've got your emails. If you want to send us your questions, send it to podcast@soxprospects.com. Like I always say, we want to talk about what you want to hear about. So send us your thoughts, your questions, your concerns. We got, I think, at least one. We've got a nice quick turnaround between the last episode and this one. So we'll hit that listener email before the end of the show as well. We also want to give a shout-out to our $5 level Patreon supporters. That'd be Sock Signatures, Kirby Miller, Kyle Costigan, Tyler Wooddraw, Jeff Trainer, David Nardone, Tim Harding, Bill Stanton, Deb Kendall, Evan Kirkwood, Hurricanes 1, Chris Fox, James O'Hara, Nathan Kenyon, Andrew Wallen, Lendell Martin, Ben Burnett, David B., and Cy. Thank you, everyone. As I mentioned, our last episode right now is the Sox Prospects donation drive, and we could really use your support. We're asking you to help us raise $7,000 to keep Sox Prospects up and running for another year. Your donations help cover site costs, in two areas, that being firsthand coverage, travel costs, so that Ian can go check out the Lowell Spinners, so that we can go to spring training, so that we can send someone to the Fall Instructional League, so that I can check out teams when they're in Frederick and Bowie, and even Lowell I'm going to catch in Aberdeen this year because that's a team that I definitely want to go see. So it helps us with that, and also helps with general IT costs, computer hardware, software, internet costs, hosting fees, etc. We do have advertising, but it doesn't come near covering all of our budget for the travel costs and the IT costs. So your donations really help. To support us, you can go to soxprospects.com/donate, or you can go to patreon.com/soxprospects. That's where those $5 level contributors come from. They're contributing $5 an episode on Patreon. If you do $2 per episode, you get access to the Patreon, or up $2 or more, you get access to the Patreon game updates, and that's where one of us will go to a game and we'll go on Patreon and we'll post updates. Ian just posted 2 this weekend from the Lowell Spinners. We're going to get to some of that on here, but we just don't have time to get to all of it. There's a half hour of content on the Lowell Spinners on there. We're not going to do a half an hour, much as Ian might like to, on the Lowell Spinners today. So if you want even more content, if this podcast is not enough for you, make sure you're giving it $2 and up per episode. That'll give you access to the Patreon game updates. I know we just got a whole bunch of people on there. I want to say thank you to our newest patrons at the $2 level who just signed up. But without further ado, Ian, let's jump into it. Let's really quickly, before we get to Lowell and the DSL, let's talk really quickly about kind of the news. Otherwise, transactions-wise, the Red Sox signed Chris Owings to a minor league deal today. That's a major league shortstop, or at least the guy who's played in the majors.
Major league utility player.
Major league utility. Okay.
Please refer to him by his proper name.
Sure. Major league utility player, Chris Owings. Owings is a player with 620 major league games. He's got over 2,250 plate appearances. The line's 242, 285, 368. This year with Kansas City, he was OPSing 415 with an OPS plus of 11. But meanwhile, he had played second, third, center, right, short, left, and even pitched.
Utility player,
like you said. It's a death move.
Yeah, they don't have any. We've talked about it before when they called up Chavis, but
last time when they called up Marco Hernandez.
Right, they don't have guys on the 40-man roster that play the middle infield. Mm-hmm. So, frankly, they don't have position players on the 40-man roster. The only position players on the 40-man roster in Pawtucket right now are Oscar Hernandez, who's a catcher, Sam Travis, who plays first base and left field, and Zue Lin, who's rehabbing an injury and can obviously play shortstop, second, third, and left. But I think it's just, as you said, a pure depth move. I'm not sure, are they adding to the 40-man or is it a minor league deal?
It's a minor league deal, I think.
So there's no risk. They're playing like Jansen, Whitty, and Mike Miller, guys like that every day. He's more the same.
Miller's on the IL right now.
Right, but what I mean is he's just a minor league depth guy, and if they need him, so be it. He's got experience versus having to turn to someone who doesn't have any big league experience.
Yeah, if you look at the Pawtucket roster, you've got Chad De La Guerra who's down there. He's actually hitting really well this year. I was just about to say he maybe wasn't getting the job done, but he's hitting 297, 377, 554. That's kind of interesting. But, you haven't had Tony Renda all year, and I think they were counting on having Tony Renda as a depth option. Mike Miller is what he is. I don't know what the deal is with Zue Lin, but Marco Hernandez is up, and I think they needed to add to that depth, especially now with it becoming clear that Pedroia is not coming back. This year, it's been acknowledged that he's stepping away for the year. Eduardo Nunez is what he is. They're going to keep him around the clubhouse because I think they like him in the clubhouse. But, he is what he is at this point. Right now, you're starting Marco Hernandez at second and Michael Chavis at first. So,
Marco Hernandez can hit, though. We should probably it's good to see him back healthy. Obviously, he was out for so long. But he's just someone who, we talked about it, that he has, a chance to start. Could be a second division starter. So
in 8 games, he's hitting 250, 250, 500.
Yeah. Fine. It's better than Eduardo Nunez
can do. No walks, 8 strikeouts, which is...
Walks are overrated.
Marco Hernandez line.
Yeah, he doesn't walk very much. He doesn't strike out overly too much, but he doesn't walk at all. So
yeah, let's see. 2016 with Pawtucket, which was his last full season. He walked 12 times in 57 games.
Yeah, and it wasn't even a full season. It was 57 games.
Right. With Boston that year, he walked 5 times in 51 at-bats.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, he doesn't walk very much, but like he can hit. I mean, he's like, I think a career like close to 300 hitter in the minor leagues, hit for average, got a little pop. Like, frankly, for what they need at second base right now, he's more than serviceable. And it's going to be interesting to me whenever Moreland and Pierce come off the DL, what they do. Cause I'm wondering if it's going to turn into kind of like a 3-way platoon between Chavis, Hernandez, and the first baseman between those two positions, or if he goes back down or what.
Well, we should probably also mention Michael Chavis. Has pulled out of his funk again.
After going into a brutal slump. I think, okay, this is who he's going to be, frankly. Like, this is kind of what I expect. Like, Chavis does not have the hit tool that is going to sustain, like, a high average. He's going to go through streaks where he's just seeing the ball really well, hitting really well, like he did to start. And then he's also going to have his stretches because of the strikeouts and the nature of his swing and everything and approach that he's going to go, 1 for 30 or 2 for 50 or something. Yeah. But as long as he keeps working his way out of it, that's fine.
His last 10 games, 324, 390, 541.
Right. I mean,
2 bombs.
Yeah, he's going to, I think this is like, he's kind of finding his footing, and this is what he is. He's like a 240 to 260 hitter who can hit 25 home runs a year. Yeah. And that's obviously a skill player.
Before that, in his previous 16 games, 164, 239, 246 with 27 strikeouts and 67 plate appearances.
Yep, you got to get used to it.
Yeah, welcome to the roller coaster.
I do think we should mention at all that, like, I don't think he's ever playing third base again. Like, he's a first baseman or a second baseman.
Not with the Red Sox unless Devers is getting a day off.
And yeah, anyone who was questioning Rafael Devers, yeah.
We told you so.
He's good at the baseballs.
I mean, we've been saying for years, Ian.
It's on the scouting report on our site. Like,
he's got the tools.
It's right there.
And this is for everyone who is saying, like, oh, well, call up Dahlbeck and have him play third and move Devers to first. Like, no. That's a waste of both of them. I think he's third in, like, defensive rating over the last 50 games or 30 games. Or there's some stretch. I can't remember what it was, but it's after that sloppy start where obviously he did get off to a slow start defensively. Yeah. He's the third best defensive third baseman in all of baseball. Like, and obviously this is not what level wise. I think he's like a solid, he's going to be like a solid average third baseman. He's not a Gold Glove caliber guy, but it's more than enough for the bat to play, and the bat is going to play. Like, yes. He's going to be in Cleveland this year. And he's going to be an all-star this year, and I would pretty much guarantee this will not be his best first half of his career. He will have a first half that's better than this sometime in his career. Probably several times. Like, I like it. He's like, Devers is going to have a year where he's going to hit like 330 with 35 home runs, and everyone's just going to be like, oh, wow, he's pretty good, huh? And yeah, he is. Like, he's just, this is the type of talent the Red Sox don't have in their system right now. And very, very few teams do. Like, he's a special player. So enjoy it while we can. Mm-hmm. Because thankfully he's around for a while, though. So that's good. That's very true. All right, well, moving on. We've got some draft signings, a whole slew of them. Yeah, and, they're getting work done early. They're getting it. Well, I mean, I think there's reasons for this. Let's get into what's happening. What would those reasons be? That they agreed to these numbers before the draft? Well, there's that. I'm just kidding. But no, I mean, well, anything. I think you know where I'm going to go with this. But the Red Sox have signed the following players. I guess we'll start with the highlights. And their top pick, second quote unquote rounder, Cameron Cannon. First rounder in the second round, Cameron Cannon. He got $1.3 million. Slot for that pick was $1.729 and change, just under $1,730,000. So they saved about about $430,000 on that pick. Yeah. A little less than I thought he would get. I thought like 1.4. Yeah, 1.4, 1.5 was kind of where Yumi and Mike had wound up. The Red Sox signed their third rounder, Ryan Zefferjohn, for $500K flat. That one was surprising to me. You thought he was going to get over slot? I thought he was going to get over slot. No, I thought he would get slot. I mean, but this is basically like, and we should say this, like the MLB BA Perfect Game, all those sites do a great job with their draft coverage, but at the end of the day, like, those aren't reflective of what organizations, how they value players, and the players know that. So when we see a guy sign like Zefferjohn sign for lower than slot at pick 107 for the slot, so it was closer to, I don't know what pick, probably like 112, 115. Like, and he was ranked higher than that. There's a reason. Like, he's not,
his talent is representative of the bonus he's getting there. So.
Yeah, and I mean, keep in mind, because, this is, with one of the guys we're about to talk about, this has kind of become, a thing on our forum. It's not like teams have out the Baseball America rankings.
No, they have their
during
own
the draft. They have their own scouting and rankings and projections and things like that, and scouting reports. They're not drafting a guy based on where Perfect Game has him.
Well, that was like when the Cannon pick happened. I got a question on Twitter. It was like, why would they take Cannon over Nick Quintana, who the Red Sox drafted a few years ago?
Because they wanted him.
And it was like, well, we don't know. Maybe they liked Cannon more than Quintana. Perfectly reasonable. Then you look for what they signed for. Cannon went for 1.3. Quintana got full slot, which was 1.6, I want to say, where he went. Like, those are the things, like, but that's the point. It's like, as you said, the rankings aren't reflective of what teams think. And so they're great for us and they're great to talk about. But at the end of the day, the teams have their own rankings. And I think we're going to get down to the big overslot guy I'm guessing.
And the teams, the other point on that, Ian, is that, they're not reflective of what teams think, save for like an order of magnitude, right? Like, I think everyone's more or less around the same on the top 30 or top 20 or 30.
I would say, the top 10 to 15 even.
I think, okay, so call it the top 20, because I think I saw something about this recently, and I wish I could credit it, but I don't know. Maybe it was a Fangraphs piece, but like the top 20 or so is where most people agree. Yeah. And then after that, it's a crapshoot. Look at the rankings. The guy we're going to talk about.
I was going to say, look at Matthew Lugo, though. MLB had him 38. BA had him 74. Perfect Game had him 50. That even within that group, there's a range of.
I think Fangraphs had him in the 20s.
Yeah, so like that's a range of 50 plus.
And look at Cannon too. Cannon, the Fangraphs had him at like 48.
Yeah, like
MLB
these guys,
and PG had him in the 70s, and Baseball America had him at 94.
Yeah, like it's who's to say who's right? Like it's all guesswork. But
but if you look at like Brock Bell, just the 7th rounder,
which we should talk about,
which we'll talk about in a minute. But like Perfect Game had him in their top 200. Baseball America didn't rank him. It went out to Perfect Game went out to 600. I think BA went out to 500.
Yeah.
Like, top 200 versus not in the top 500.
Yeah.
Like that's
but that also could have been a thing where, like, Brock Bell only threw, like, 7 appearances all year, so they might not have seen him, potentially.
But at any rate, so that's why you can't take these things as gospel. Yeah, they're useful to orders of magnitude, and that's about it.
Do you want to talk about Bell now, or do you want to move down?
We'll move down. So we got Zephyr John. Jax Groshans, the 5th rounder, the catcher out of Kansas. Zephyr John's battery mate, signed for exactly slot, $304,200 in the 5th round. Chris Murphy, the 6th rounder, has signed. We don't know the bonus yet. Brock Bell, the 7th rounder, is the first overslot signing. Slot for him was $107,700. He signed for $465,000, which if carry the two.
It's like $180,000. Or sorry, it's like $280,000.
So that's roughly $277,300. Just off the top of my head, not typing it into my calculator on my computer.
I did it off the top of my head for those listening.
So, that's some of the Cameron money.
Yeah.
That you saved went to Brock Bell. But they've saved money on Zephyr John, saved money on Cannon, and they signed 8th rounder Will Dalton out of Florida to a $130,000 bonus. That's about little under 30 grand less than slot. So.
Right. Well, and we should mention with Bell had leverage here. Bell was a junior college guy who had a commitment to Auburn, who I believe made the College World Series this year. Or lost in the Super Regional?
I think they lost in the Super Regional.
Okay, whatever. They're a good college baseball program. And so he had leverage here. We're not talking about like a guy who was a college junior or whatever. He was a junior college guy with the leverage of being able to say, fine, I'll go to Auburn, play 1 year there, and then be draft eligible next year as a junior again. So, yeah.
Yeah, Auburn did not make the College World. Oh, they are. They did. They played Mississippi State in the first round.
Yeah, I thought they did, yeah. And then obviously we should mention moving down the 9th and 10th round picks. Neither of them have signed, but that's not because there's any issues. It's because both their teams are playing in the College World Series. Well, actually, Arkansas was literally eliminated like 2 hours ago. So Scroggins will probably sign relatively shortly.
That's ninth rounder Cody
Scroggins. out of Arkansas will sign probably some point in the next few days. And then Steven Scott, the outfielder for Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's good and is still playing, so that could be a while. Unless Michigan has something to say about that.
Well, Kumar Rocker might have something to say about that too.
No, Michigan has something to say about that.
Are they beating Florida State? I told my wife to put.
They were last time I looked.
Okay. Well, then there's some other later round signings. Second base. Okay, we should mention actually, Cannon is going to Lowell. Zephyr John, Groshans.
I've seen a lot of those guys in Lowell already. They're not playing yet, though.
Right. Murphy's going to Lowell. Dalton is going to Lowell. Bell is going to the Gulf Coast League. And then the following guys have signed. The 17th round, Alex Arrow out of Northwestern, second baseman Lowell. Catcher Jacob Herbert out of George Jenkins High School in Florida. He's going to the GCL. First baseman Joe Davis out of Houston is in Lowell. You can't miss him. Senior sign. 21st rounder Dylan Spake, right-hander out of Long Beach State. I think he went to the Gulf Coast League. First baseman Dom D'Alessandro, first baseman out of GW. George Washington, he's in Florida in the Gulf Coast League. Center fielder Leon Polino. He went to Florida Virtual High School, which I think means he was homeschooled, but that was just his senior year. He is from Lawrence, Massachusetts, which is awesome.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Rep the Merrimack Valley. I had a tweet the other day that got so much traction because I was just talking about how I have this dream that he and Sebastian Keane out of North Andover are going to
Merrimack Valley
teach everyone in the Red Sox system to play 45s and talk about chicken barbs. And I did not realize that many people on Twitter knew what 45s was. I was very happy about that. 24th rounder Dean Miller out of Cal Riverside, Gulf Coast League. And the 24th rounder, and then the 26th rounder, lefty Brandon Walter out of Delaware, 27th rounder Devin Rodall out of Houston. They are both in the Gulf Coast League. The 29th rounder, Luke Bandy out of Dallas Baptist, is in Lowell. So, yes, that is the update on the draft signings. A few more things left to shake down. Obviously, Lugo, it's been reported. I should mention second rounder Matthew Lugo, pick 69. Out of Carlos Beltran Academy in Puerto Rico, is reportedly going to sign for $1.1 million, unconfirmed. That would be slightly over slot. Slot for that pick is $929,800, so call it $930. So that would be, about $170,000 over slot. So he's going to get probably the rest of the Cameron Cannon money, it looks like. And then Noah Song, the fourth rounder, I have no idea what he's going to sign for. Slot is $406K.
I got asked on a radio hit what I think he was going to get, and I said it would not surprise me if he got $50K. It also wouldn't surprise me if he got like $600K. I have genuinely no idea. I think it's probably going to be like $250 maybe. But it's one of the more unique draft cases I've ever seen.
There's no precedent.
Yeah,
zero
he's
precedent.
Most likely going to miss 2 years, and
right.
So who knows?
He's a senior, but he's. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. So we'll cross that bridge. I think we should also mention that two of the guys, this is kind of interesting to me. It's the Red Sox are kind of resorting to the draft and follow approach that they took under the old system with a few guys this year, it seems.
Well, they did that last year, too, with Chris McAmer.
I guess so, yeah. But Brendan Salucci and Ora Anu, is that right?
Oraj Anu, maybe.
They're both playing in the Cape Cod League, and I think Anu has already homered a couple times. But, yeah, the Cape Cod League, so that's obviously very close and gives the Red Sox a pretty good look at them. So, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so we'll see what it might just be a matter of how much money's left over, too, when they sign everybody else. But, yeah. Okay, so that's the draft. Moving along. Ian, speaking of draftees and young players, you have seen the Lowell Spinners this year. You've got a couple Patreon game updates about it, but let's talk about it here. Big picture-wise, this is one of the most exciting Lowell teams we've seen in a while. Before anyone has signed, any of the draft signings have joined the team, they have 4 top 20 prospects in the system. In shortstop, Anthony Flores, outfielder Nick Decker, outfielder Gilberto Jimenez, and third baseman Nick Northcutt. That's obviously the big 4. Let's start there. You've seen them 2 nights in a row. I guess starting with Flores and kind of the, in the shortened version, what did you see out of each of those 4 guys?
Yeah, so I guess just generally, first of all, Lowell's off to a really good start. I think they're killing whoever they're playing again tonight. So they're going to be 3-1, and the one game they lost was a disaster of a Penn League game. They were like 20 runs, 30 hits, 6 errors or 7 errors, 5 wild pitches, 10, 15 walks. It was just a 3.5 or 4 hour beautiful display of Penn League baseball. But because of that, it means Northcutt, Flores, Gilberto, and Decker have gotten a lot of playing time, a lot of at bats. So I was able to get a pretty good look at that quartet or group. And I guess starting with Flores, yeah, I mean, there's a lot to like here. There's also some issues that we're going to have to work on, but he's an 18-year-old kid playing against, 21, 22-year-olds. So that's kind of expected. He's hitting, I think he's 1 for, I don't remember it doesn't matter. He's probably like 1 for 8, 1 for 6, as of when I in the 2 games I saw him, but, he's got a really smooth swing. Like he has feel for hit. He knows what he's doing at the plate. There's going to be swing and miss right now, cause he doesn't have the strength really to whip his bat drags a little bit compared to where his hands want to go. And that's understandable. I mean, he's an 18-year-old kid, but, the swing is good. He's made some hard contact when I saw him. I think he had a double, and he had a couple other really hard hit balls. And then he's also struck out like 4 or 5 times, but that's going to happen. But physically, I think that's kind of what stood out to me is he's definitely already started to fill out. He's listed at 6 foot 190. And as we talked about in the past, he's pretty physically developed for his age. He had some projection remaining in the upper body, but he's even gotten a little bigger than when I saw him in the past. And so that's going to be something we'll need to watch defensively, which I'll get.
Let me interject real quick. Flores was 1 for 8 in the 2 games you saw with 3 strikeouts and a walk. Yeah.
So, I mean, there's some swing and miss right now, but it's one of these things where like, he knows when he's messing up, which I like. Kind of like he gets frustrated. He got visibly frustrated when he missed a first pitch fastball that was very hittable. And the fact that he's already doing that means he knows he's good and that he like has high standards for himself, which I don't know. I like that. I like to see like a guy who cares like that. But yeah, defensively is kind of the thing I want to talk to. The first thing with his speed, like I saw him as an average runner last year, and now I think he's probably like a 40 runner. He's a below average runner, and I think that's only going to get worse as he physically matures. So that's something we're going to have to watch with him. And then defensively, he's made a couple good plays here and there, but there's also I think he has 2 errors or maybe 3 already this year, and they're just kind of like. There's just something, I don't know. He doesn't look that comfortable at times in the field. Like he made a couple really good plays. One was on a pop up where he just fluidly caught it over his shoulder, but then there was just like a ground ball a little to his left and he booted it. And so it's understandable. There are going to be some issues when you're younger, but, and the inconsistencies in the field, but at shortstop, that kind of gets magnified as you move up the ladder. And so I'm going to need to see a lot more of him there to be comfortable, like projecting him as a long-term shortstop. But I do think the bat, there's going to be enough juice for it to play either at second or third if that's what ends up happening. But for now, obviously you leave him at shortstop and see how he develops there. But as he gets bigger, which I think is going to happen, that's going to be get a little more questionable maybe as he moves up the ladder.
Mm-hmm. But for you, I mean, we've got him ranked as the number, I think, 8 prospect in the system, right? Sound about right to you? You think you're going to move him up, move him down?
No, I'll probably leave him like right around there for now. Just looking at the guys ahead of him, like he's just so far away, frankly. I mean, you could make a case that he's like at the end of the year, I wouldn't be surprised if he's my number 5 prospect, but I'm going to give it some time, get a couple more looks, and then we'll go from there. There's
it's a long season. I mean, keep in mind, the number 1 prospect right now, Tristan Casas, had a brutal April, right?
Yeah,
he was legitimately bad.
Yeah. So. Well, and Tristan Casas is now not just the number 1 prospect in the system. He's going to be like a consensus top 100 guy this offseason. Yeah. So
well, he got added. He and Jaron Duran got added to Baseball America's top 100 list as guys graduating.
So he got added to Fangraphs too.
Did he?
Yeah. I think he's
Casas is a stud. But that's the thing is you got to give these guys time to develop.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, especially with someone like Flores is an 18-year-old. I mean, Casas is the same thing, 19-year-old, like first real season stateside. Flores got 2 at bats last year or something before he got hurt when he came over.
He started in the Dominican Summer League.
Right, that's what I said.
Played like 8. Well, but I'm saying he played like 18 games. Was too good for the DSL and got promoted.
Yeah,
and then came over here. Basically, was hurt.
He had 4 at bats.
Didn't play at all. came back, got 4 at-bats, got hurt again, and was out until Instructs. So
yeah, and he played at Instructs, but still, that's not the same thing as playing. I mean, at Instructs, you're playing in front of the front office, the other players, and like 10 fans. You know, in Lowell, they're drawing, you know, a couple thousand guys. That's like a big thing. That is a difference. Like, you know, you might want to playing in front of people and in a stadium, and the whole routine is different than what these kids are used to. So it's going to take some time to adjust, but I'm not worried. Like I like him a lot, and he's a really interesting guy. And he's very talented.
Oh, sorry. Tell me about the number 12 prospect in our rankings, Ian, Nick Decker.
So Decker's off to an interesting start. I think his stance is a little different than when we saw him in the past. He's a little crouched now, which I'm not a huge fan of, but it seems to be working for him. But I think the first thing that stands out to me is he's pretty advanced with his pitch, with his like knowledge of the strike zone compared to the other guys. He's very passive. He works a lot of counts deep, and the result is he struck out like 4 times, but he's also walked 4 times. Like I think he has like 6 at bats in 4 games this year because he's walked 4 times and has like 4 sac flies.
Well, I can tell you right now, Decker in 2 games has 3 at bats. He's 1 for 3 with 3 walks and 2 strikeouts. Yeah,
but he also has like 3 sac flies in that stretch.
This one does not have sac flies anymore.
I mean, I'm telling you, he did. I was at the game.
I know. I'm just trying to. Yeah, they don't have sack flies anymore on.
I can tell you actually.
But yeah, I mean, he's only got 3 at bats.
Yeah, because in the first day he had a first game he had on opening night, he had a sac fly, walked twice, and then struck out. And then the second game he had 2 sac flies, 1 sac fly, 2 sac flies, a triple, and a walk in the games I've seen. So he's got a knack for getting on base. He knows the strike zone, and it's like a relatively advanced knowledge of the strike zone compared to some of the other guys.
I think I saw something about how in 9 plate appearances he's seen like 60-something pitches. Or no, it was including tonight. In like 12 plate appearances he's seen like 63 pitches.
Yeah, he works very deep counts, but this is kind of, funnily enough, when you're facing Lowell pitching or Penn League pitching, you don't get very many hittable pitches in an at-bat. And I kind of wish he was a little more aggressive because he's passing by. There's some like very hittable fastballs that he's letting go. And I kind of, just as a kid where he is in his development, I want to see him swing the bat. Obviously, it's like, for me, that's what I want to see. So I do like that he's taking pitches, but at the same time, he could stand to be a little more aggressive. And I think this is something we've said about some other guys before. Like I remember when Andrew Benintendi was in Lowell, he hit like 230 because he just was standing there and like taking 3 pitches every at bat for whatever reason. And so I wouldn't be surprised if Decker is a little shaky because of this. But when he does swing, I like the swing. There's definitely power on his triple. He really turned on a fastball, got it off the wall in right field. And I think he's only a right fielder now. He has not played center field once, which makes sense because Gilberto Jimenez is a potential like plus defender in center field, and he should be playing center field every day. And frankly, Decker's not that athletic. I don't think he's a center fielder. So I kind of like that they're just putting him in the corner already because that's where he's going to ultimately end up. Let him get used to it. Arm is kind of 45-ish to me. But I like him. I'm interested to see if he moves up in the lineup. I think that's something you're going to talk about later. But the lineup is really weird right now.
Well, let's say right now, I mean, these 4 guys are hitting 6, 7, 8, 9, which is kind of weird.
They bumped up to 5, 6, 7, 8 from one of the games. But yeah, they're all hitting.
Arnold was hitting 9.
Yeah, they're all hitting in a row though at the end. But I don't know. I think my theory is it's to kind of give them some just a time to adjust to the league and get used to it. And then eventually once they're succeeding, which they're going to, because they're good, they're going to move them up in the lineup. Like I wouldn't be surprised if like by midseason, Gilberto is hitting first, Decker's hitting second, or Flores is hitting second. The other one's hitting third, and Northcutt's hitting fourth. Like that would not surprise me at all. Right. But then again, with all the college guys coming in, they
probably won't actually, because Cannon's going to be hitting near the top of the lineup.
So Cannon, and so I bet like Groshans is going to hit like third. Like I wouldn't be surprised actually if they stay down there thinking about that. But it's just interesting, that they're doing it that way. But I like having them all in a row. It's great for me because it makes it so I know which innings are the ones that are going to stand out.
But it's tough to focus for a full game, man. I get it. Like,
especially when it's like 4 hours of slop.
Yeah.
But Decker, I like what I've seen so far. But I'm just, I still, it's a little surprising to me he didn't go to Greenville. But I get it. He's a high school guy from the Northeast. Like that's not a baseball hotbed exactly. So they're breaking him slowly. And if he's in Greenville next year, it's fine developmentally. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, they're definitely taking it slower with him than they have with other, like, second-round picks. I mean...
Right. Like Cole... I wonder...
guess Cole Brandon last
Cole
year...
Brandon, same thing, right?
No. He went to Greenville and got demoted.
I wonder if they're scared off by that almost.
Maybe.
Like, because the Brandon thing has obviously not worked out very well. And he did go straight to Greenville, and then they had to send him back down. Whereas this way, if he rakes for half the season, he'll just get promoted to Greenville anyway.
But Brandon, keep in mind, actually played in Lowell after signing.
Well, we got
as
3.
As opposed to Decker, who got...
He got 3 games, sorry.
Brandon or Decker?
Brandon got 3 games in Lowell last year, or his first year in the system.
I thought he played more.
Yeah.
Did he play in the Gulf Coast League?
Yeah, he got a full season in the Gulf Coast League.
That's what I meant. Like, he got a full season of at-bats, whereas Decker got hurt.
Correct.
And got 2 at-bats, or 2 games the whole year last year before Instructs.
That is a good point.
That's my point.
So, that's Decker for you.
Gilberto Jimenez, Ian. Jimenez is ranked 16th on our list, and Jimenez is what? What was that?
He's on his way up in the rankings.
Okay. Well, he's 3 for 6 right now with 2 strikeouts and no walks. But whatever. I mean,
I loved his line. His line
he's got a 500 average and a 375 on base percentage.
Yeah, because he's got two sack flies.
Sack flies. Okay, right.
Yeah,
right.
But it was. Yeah. But if you include, I think the third game of the year, he was like 556, 500, 556, which I really liked. I don't know. Right. It just made me laugh. But Gilberto is off to a really good start, and he's a very unique player. He's just uber athletic, like to the point of guys we don't have in this system very often. We talked about it with Duran too, but Gilberto's up there athleticism wise. He's a 70 runner. I got him on a ground ball fielder's choice at like 4-1 from the right side, I want to say. Mm-hmm. I'll have to find it, but yeah,
he was said he was a 70 runner in the game update.
So. Yeah, and he was because he was like 4-1-2 from the right side, and that was slowing up at the end. Mm-hmm. Like he can really motor down the line, and he from the left side, I guess we'll start off there. The swing is it's all upper body. There's no lower half. It's just throw your arms at the ball and put it in play. But he's actually good at it. Like his hand-eye coordination is remarkable. I don't know how he does it, but he just somehow just can throw his hands at the ball and he gets it on the barrel and it finds a gap. And that's obviously
that was the side of the plate that Jimenez added
correct
after signing.
Correct. So he's been switch hitting for 18 months now, probably 2 years at most. So this is not his natural side, and you can tell when I get to the right-handed swing. We'll touch on that, this is the side I do have concerns about it because against more advanced pitching, guys throwing harder, like they're just going to bust him high, like we've seen kind of with Michael Chavis, and he's not very strong right now. So up in the zone is going to be an issue turning around that. But you don't see very many hitters with the slap-happy approach he has succeed in the upper levels. I mean, we saw with someone like Zhu Wei Lin who had a similar swing when he was in Lowell. He had to completely retune what he was doing when he got up to the high minors. So that left-handed swing is a little concerning to me and something he's going to have to work on. But the fact that he's taken so naturally to it and is able to put the ball in play already with it and use his speed is encouraging. Mm-hmm. When I saw him hit from the right side yesterday, he faced 2 lefties. It's just the swing is so much more fluid. He actually incorporates his lower half. Like he uses a leg kick. There's more of a stride there and a load, and he can actually square the ball up. He had a ball that he absolutely crushed to left field. That was a missile that just happened to be caught like 10 feet short of the warning track. But it was the kind of swing that when he's physically developed and not 160-pound string bean is going to be a home run. And so from the right side, I really like the swing, and I'm interested to see how his splits work out because he's going to face so many more righties and lefties this year. So there's going to be a lot bigger sample size from the right side. And I kind of was wondering, like I was looking at his splits last year, and he actually did hit better against righties than lefties. But I think part of that is from the left side, he's so far out of the batter's box that he can use his speed more on balls that he puts in play, and that really is going to artificially boost his BABIP and his average. But at the plate, like you can dream on a plus hit. Like the power, I'm not sure what it's going to become. The frame has a lot of projection. He's, as I said, probably 5'11", 160 right now. So it's a long way to go developmentally, and there might be a little power. But right now, it's like 30 raw, like 20 game. There's no power at all. So we'll see what happens there. But I like the hit tool a lot. And then obviously the speed plays. And in the field, I've liked what I've seen. You know, it's rough. There are some issues. He has a lot of trouble reading balls off the bat that are like in. You know, when the batter takes a really big swing, but then hits a little bloop pop up. Like, he has a lot of trouble reading that, and he had a couple that probably he should have caught, but he got a slow first step and wasn't able to, that dropped in front of him. But at the same time, he made two really good plays that I think actually our intrepid, great photographer, Kelly O'Connor, got a really nice shot of that she put on Twitter of him making over-the-shoulder catch on a ball where he just took off immediately because he read it perfectly and caught it, and it was a very nice play. It was something, you know, a lot of center fielders aren't going to get to that ball. And so it's kind of like a mixed bag out there, but I think the raw tools are there for him to develop into a plus defensive center fielder. And the arm, I would grade it right now like a 50-55. And I think, though, as he adds strength, it could develop plus. Like, he throws a good ball in. It's on the line. It's not too high and loopy. Like, it's got some carry on it. It's a little light, but it will get more. And I think that's just going to be a part of his game, too. So overall, if you can't tell, I've been really impressed by him, especially as an 18-year-old who didn't play in the Gulf Coast League at all. To come straight over to the Penn League and start doing this is very impressive.
You said Kelly put those photos online?
No, she tweeted him. Yeah.
Or tweeted him?
Yeah. I'll send it, or I'll tag you in it.
I don't see him at all. Oh, I see it. Hold on. Oh, wow, that is a nice pic.
Yeah, so she got
she sent it replying to you.
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Yes. But that was the catch. That gives you an idea of what he did. But he did a really good job of tracking the ball, and it was kind of one where he was able to it wasn't like completely over the shoulder. He actually was able to get behind it and make a comfortable play on it. And you can see how close he is to the warning track on that compared to where he started. It was a really nice play.
Nice. Yeah, well, that's Jimenez. And then let's finish up with our number 17 prospect, third baseman, Nick Northcutt, Ian.
Yeah, Northcutt, I think, is probably off to the best statistical start.
Yeah, and actually, so I can give that to you right now. Northcutt is hitting, let's see, in the first two games, he was 5 for 8 with 4 doubles.
Yeah.
Which is good, I think. 1 walk and 2 strikeouts.
Correct. And I think now, he added a couple more hits, I think, each of the last 2 days. He's had 1 hit each of the last 2 days. But with Northcutt, the things I like are there's definite pop in the bat, and he's a really strong kid, like very physical. Just he's built. He's probably he's only like 6'1", but it's a really physical, sturdy frame, and he uses his strength really well at the plate. A couple of the doubles were just like kind of like pitches where he was caught out in front against breaking balls, but he was able to muscle them into the outfield and put the ball in play, which was a good sign. So that was good. The powers, there's definitely power. Extra base hits are already starting to show up. He showed a little oppo power on the Sunday game. He got a breaking ball up and away that he actually did a good job staying back on and deposited off the right field wall, which is like 380 in the power alley. So that was a really nice swing. So the power's there. The swing can get a little long at times, and the approach is definitely like a work in progress at this point. He doesn't do a great job recognizing off-speed pitches, and he'll expand the zone a little bit. But if he can cut that down, that'll improve as he gets older and gets more reps. And then in the field, he's kind of had a mixed bag. He had one game where he didn't do a lot, and then the other one he had an error and a couple other plays where his footwork needs some work, and he had some trouble charging the ball. And I think defensively is just my biggest question with him. Actually, the big two are going to be defense and the hit tool. What's going to happen with those? Mm-hmm. And that's going to go a long way to determining what his ultimate upside is. But I think he's going to have a very good year with Lowell pitching because he's pretty confident. He's confident at the plate, and he's going to hit for power. And he's going to be one of their better hitters this year, I suspect.
Right. Yeah. By the way, I was a little distracted. Ian Devers made another running backwards over the shoulder ridiculous catch. Yeah. While pulled over to shortstop.
That was kind of like the play I was talking about Flores made, where it was there was one way behind third base where he just completely flew it on the run over the shoulder catch, which is nice.
Well, but so anyway, getting back to Northcutt, sounds like you liked what you saw after.
Yeah, I mean, there was some good.
Seemed to be lagging a little behind the other guys.
I mean, there are some good things. There were some good things, but at the same time, I do have some questions that he doesn't have. That he's not on the same level upside wise as the other three guys to me.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Cool. Well, let's maybe move on to the mound, Ian. You saw a few pitchers. You saw a couple starters. Let's start with the guy you saw on opening night, Yusniel Padron Artiles, whose name for some reason includes 2 L's on MILB.com now.
I know we've had a big debate about that.
Oh God, the name. But yeah, anyways, he went 6 innings on opening night,
which was surprising, I should say, because I'm not used to guys going that deep and low.
I know, but he allowed 1 run on 3 hits, 3 walks, 7 Ks. Nice little outing from Padron Artiles, who also has seen some time, along with a couple other guys on this roster, in Greenville this year as kind of a spot starter. In Greenville, the numbers are okay. 19 2/3, 11 runs on 20 hits, so the ERA is 5.03. 5 games, 2 of them starts. The other 3 were piggybacking. But 18 Ks to 4 walks. What did you see out of Padron Artiles? Is he a guy that we should put on our radars?
I mean, he's old for the level, or at least he's not the youngest guy. He's 21. So, and as you said, he's got that experience in Greenville. The things I did like were he knows how to pitch, which makes sense. I guess he's, as I said, one of the older guys, but he doesn't throw very hard. The stuff doesn't stand out, but it's, 80 to 80, 88, 89 with the fastball with some cut at 87, 88 when he drops it down a little velo wise for more movement. Change up is 78 to 80, and then he mixes in a curveball anywhere from like 66 to 75. And at 66, it's a legit Sharifis pitch, which is pretty fun to watch.
Love the
and that's just literally to steal a first pitch strike. That's the only time he used that. But for the most part, it's like 71 to 73. But it's kind of like a long, deep curveball. And I don't know. I just he had a good job. He got a lot of swing and misses. He had 7 strikeouts, as you said, in 6 innings, and was pretty efficient. I think he only threw like 70 pitches in 6 innings, even though he struck out 7 guys and walked 3. So that's pretty good. Mm-hmm. And I think the thing that stood out for me was just his fastball is really hard to hit. It really jumps on hitters because he has this really short arm action where he just keeps it completely behind his body the entire time before coming forward. So hitters have a lot of trouble picking it up until late. And when they do, it jumps on them and plays up a little bit, even though velocity-wise it's below average. So, I mean, because of the lack of velocity and the fringy secondary stuff, I'm not sure it's more than like an organizational profile at best. But for like a low arm, he's pretty solid.
Yeah, that's good to see on Padron Artiles. I guess I'll just throw to you on maybe talk about 1 or 2 more guys of the guys you saw. The other starter that you saw was a young prospect by the name of Hector Velazquez.
Yeah, he was really young. The hitters had no chance against him. No,
really. Yeah, I mean it was 1 inning,
and he's in the major leagues right now. Yeah,
he got called back up today.
Yeah, he was rehabbing, so that was
but you saw the piggyback for him was Yasel Santana, who did not have a great outing statistically. At least he allowed 6 runs, 5 earned in 4 innings.
He also had like 3 perfect innings and then got bombed in his last inning and inning plus. Yeah.
And this is why, can I just make a quick point? Mm-hmm. This is why you can't just go on stats, especially in a small sample size in short season ball. Because you have the things like a guy will be rolling for 5 innings, but then he just gets out. Absolutely. The wheels fall off in a way that they don't when the guys are older.
Yeah, this was the Sunday game that I was talking about. Mm-hmm. That was quite the game.
A mess, yeah.
And he threw the second. He threw 3 shutout innings, gave up 2 runs in the 5th, and then they gave up 5 runs in the 6th. Mm-hmm. And it was just one of these things where he was for those first 3 innings, he was on point. His fastball was up to 95. He was sitting mostly like 92, 93, but he could run it up there. And then after that, like the 4th inning hit, and we're looking at 90 to 92, some 88s, some 89s in there. Velo dropped off completely second time through the order, and this stuff just wasn't crisp at all. I mean, there were some good things. He got a lot of swinging strikes, especially with his changeup. I'm not sure it's a changeup or a splitter, but I called it a changeup, but it could be a split. It was pretty similar. The movement, it was hard to tell, but that was like 84 to 86, and he threw it a ton. He got, I want to say, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I had like 9 swinging strikes with just the changeup alone. Mm-hmm. So that was encouraging, but I think he's a reliever. I've said it before. I think he's a reliever, and this didn't do anything to change my opinion of that. He's not the most, the biggest guy. He's like 6'1", 180 pounds. There's some projection left, but it's not like overly physical frame. He's pretty athletic, and there's some looseness in his arm, which I like. But yeah, just second time through, it just fell apart kind of, and which isn't surprising. I mean, and it's a 2-pitch mix, fastball, changeup. The slider's well below average pitch. It's a little cutter-like at times, but he didn't throw it even very much. It was mostly fastballs and changeups. And so, it was good for 3 innings, and that's kind of what I wish they would use him more in that role rather than trying to turn him into a true starter, because that's, I think, what his ultimate role is going to be is a bullpenner, like a long relief type. But, I mean, there's some raw stuff there. It's just very far away.
All right, fair enough. Are any of the relievers that you saw worth mentioning very briefly, Ian?
I think the only other guy we should mention is I saw Yohan Martinez rehabbing. And he's someone who, if you look, his numbers are really good this year. I don't know.
He's been shoving in Salem. I can grab him real quick. But you saw him throw 2/3 of an inning, allow 2 runs on 3 walks and a strikeout.
Yeah, he didn't give up any hits, but his command was all over the place. In
Salem this year, in 21 2/3 innings, it's an ERA of 2.08, WHIP of 1.15, 34 Ks to 8 walks. Again, that's 21 2/3 innings for Martinez. So he was a guy that we thought might have been on his way to a promotion to Portland before he got hurt.
Yeah, and I think you could tell he was coming back from an injury in the sense of just the feel and the command wasn't there. Like, he lost his release point completely. I think he got the first 2 hitters out, and then it just completely deserted him. But, I mean, the velocity is legit. Like, it's an electric arm. He was 96 to 98. Every pitch was in that range. And but it was like 20 command and control, so it didn't really play. But it's plus arm speed, like really funky delivery. He like slings it from this low 3/4 arm slot that's pretty tough to hit, but there's a ton of effort, and it's a relief only profile. But there's definitely bat missing ability, and he threw a couple sliders that were all right at 84 to 86, but that was really inconsistent too. And then he mixed in like a changeup splitter thing again at like 84, but he only threw 1 of them. Mm-hmm. But I mean, the raw stuff is very interesting in a bullpen role. It's just consistency has always been an issue for him. And this was no surprise given he was coming back from an injury and hadn't pitched for almost a month. So hopefully we'll get to see him again before he goes back to Salem. But this raw stuff is there. It's just, is he going to put it together?
Nice. All right. And then in the lineup, one guy I wanted to ask you about was the catcher, Jonathan Diaz. If you want to give me the kind of elevator pitch on him, he's a guy that's in our top 60 and that we've really liked and that we've heard really good things about. What did you see out of him? And then if you want to mention one guy, 1 or 2 more, maybe mention one more guy if you want. Otherwise, we can move on.
Yeah, he's really the last guy. I think he's actually 45th.
This is Diaz,
Yeah, Jonathan Diaz is 45th in our rankings. He's in our top 50.
Not to be confused with Jonathan Diaz with an H.
Who's 42nd or something.
Who's a pitcher in Salem.
But Diaz is someone who I actually have never seen in a game, ironically enough, but I've heard a lot about just because he's someone that scouts like when they saw him in Fall Instructs last year, even though he didn't play when I was there. For me, it's a bad first profile. Defensively, he looked very rough. He had a lot of trouble getting down, blocking balls in plate, and it was the receiving skills weren't there. But the arm looked pretty good, so we'll see. But the receiving is going to be a work in progress. But at the plate, I liked what I saw. He's got a good swing from the left side. Looked confident at the plate. Just nice level, smooth swing, a little bit of bat speed. I turned around a lefty fastball in the low 90s off the wall for a double, which I like to see. Just when you get a young hitters who can go lefty, it's encouraging. But a lot of line drives. That was really it. He had 3 hits in the game. I saw his 3 for 4 with a walk and just good at bats. So that was a little encouraging. I believe he's struck out 3 times tonight, but whatever. He's 19, and just for a guy who he got $7,500 to sign, and he's still only 19 years old out of Venezuela. He's somewhat interesting to watch as a bat first catching prospect.
It's interesting because he turns 20 on July the 7th.
Okay, so yeah,
he signed on the July 2nd, 2017 class, but he was 18. Well, at the time he was technically 18, but he turned. No, he was 17, but he turned 18 like 5 days later. So he was an older international free agent signing.
Yeah, it was that was the year they signed a bunch of those guys.
Yeah, and he actually played that year, which is rare. Usually they sign these guys, they're 16, they basically go to the facility and work out for a year, then they start playing games the next year, like we're seeing with last year's July 2 classes that we're going to talk about in a minute. But, Diaz seemed like he was going to be a filler, but then it turned out that people like him. The scouts like him, as you mentioned. So,
well, then I mean, and yeah, you got a promotion to the Gulf Coast League after only 63 at bats in 2017, which usually says something. And he had a pretty good year there last year. He had 261, 317, 402 as a 17-year-old, or sorry, as a 19-year-old in the GCL. So yeah, it's going to be he's someone I'm definitely going to keep my eye on, and just another guy to add to the Lowell lineup. Which, as we talked about, with those 5 plus whoever else is coming when the draftees start playing, it's going to be a really interesting team.
Nice. Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to seeing them. They play down here in Aberdeen. They've got one series that starts on a Sunday. I think it's like a Sunday to Tuesday. Their schedule in the New York Penn League this year is really weird. They're doing like 2 and 3 game series.
It makes no sense. They went 2 at home, then they were playing 2 in Hudson Valley, which is not a short car ride. That's like 8 hours by bus or 6 hours, I think.
It's probably something like that, yeah.
And then they're coming home for 3 games, and then they go back on the road for 2 games. It's like, I don't understand. Yeah.
It's, at home against Connecticut, at Hudson for 2 games, at Hudson Valley for 2 games, at home for 3 games, at Connecticut for 3 games, which that one's probably not. That's not bad.
That's like an hour and a half.
But then a day off, back home for 3 games, at Brooklyn for 3 games.
That's a long drive. That's like 6 hours.
That's what closes out June. Then they come home and they finally have a 6-game homestand.
But it's just, it's really strange how they're doing it. Like the Hudson Valley one, I don't get, because that's a legit bus ride, and to go there for 2 games seems like such a waste. But
the only series where they're doing road trips is like both times they go to Aberdeen. Like
which makes sense because that's far.
Because that's a super far trip. Although they don't even have a travel day. They're there on like a Sunday through Tuesday. Then they go to Batavia on the way back, and then they play at home against Auburn with no off day. And then later on the Tuesday through Thursday series at Aberdeen. On the way back, they hit Staten Island and Brooklyn, which you should play both of them when you're in town.
Yeah,
that should be a rule.
Well, it's the same thing. When you go to Hudson Valley, you should play Batavia too, because isn't that out? I'm pretty sure that's like New York too.
This is the stupidest schedule I've ever seen. They basically go home away, home away, home away. This is so dumb.
Yeah. Batavia is literally in Canada. Like it's up near like Toronto.
Literally, you mean figuratively?
No, it's up in between Buffalo and Rochester. Like that's like really far away. And Hudson Valley it would make sense to go from there to Hudson Valley over to Batavia, not to go from like Aberdeen to Batavia. That bus ride's a nightmare.
It's like Jesus. A monkey made the schedule.
It makes no sense. I don't. Yeah.
This is so stupid.
But anyway, no one wants to hear us talk about the Lowell schedule. We should talk about the DSL.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the DSL. So this year, the Dominican Summer League, really, we obviously don't know a lot about these guys after they sign or when they're playing down there because we don't see them. You can't stream the game. There's not a whole lot of scouting that comes out from down there. Ben Badler from Baseball America basically has the market cornered on these guys before they sign, at least.
It's him and Jesse Sanchez from MLB.
Good point. But Badler really gets the most in-depth stuff. And, you have the international reviews, but, you're talking about 16-year-old players who are still developing. So we figured now that we have something of a sample size in the Dominican Summer League where the 2 teams have played, I believe, let me check this real quick. I think they've played like 12 and 13 games or something like that. They've played 12 and 13. This DSL 1 has played 12 games. DSL 2 has played 13 games. So we've got something of a sample size to look at these guys, and there are really some impressive performances coming out of there already. And we should probably start with the top bonus baby from last year's class is outfielder Eduardo Lopez. He got $1.15 million. Switch hitter. And by the way, all the scouting I should mention comes from Ben Badler's international review from March. You could check it out on at baseballamerica.com. But Lopez, switch hitter, polished swing, approach, and instincts, and that's really what we heard. Like high game acumen, it says in here, advanced ability for his age. It doesn't sound really like it's a exciting tool set, but it's line drive hitter, disciplined approach, kind of an advanced player for his age. Lopez hasn't really done much. He didn't even start on opening day, which was weird. But he's hitting in 10 games, 143, 286, 257. So that's an OPS of 543. Really kind of struggling, 11 strikeouts and 35 at-bats. Just 5 hits, 2 extra base hits, both of them triples. Welcome to the Dominican Summer League. Like we kind of joke that it's glorified Legion ball. But again, these are 17-year-olds, so that's kind of why you get that phenomenon of like no doubles but 2 triples and that sort of thing. Lopez has been struggling a little bit, as has the guy who received the second highest bonus in Eduardo Vaughn, an outfielder out of Panama. Vaughn in 9 games is hitting 156, 289, 250. So he's struggling a little bit as well. Only 7 strikeouts and 32 at-bats, so not quite as much strikeout issue there. So, Vaughn struggling a little bit, but let's go and instead focus on the positive, Ian. We've got some guys that we're going to have to rank here, kind of sight unseen. The first guy that's really making a lot of waves is outfielder Brian Gonzalez. Gonzalez received a $500,000 signing bonus out of the Dominican. When he signed, he was 6'2", 215 pounds. He's a big boy. Brute strength, quick bat speed, plus raw power. And that is translating into game power, Ian. 5 home runs in 12 games. He's hitting .313, .404, .708. He's got 6 walks and 14 strikeouts. Like I mentioned, the 5 home runs. He's also got 2 doubles and a triple among his 15 hits. He's scored 14 runs in 12 games. He's driven in 10, runs and RBI being what they are. But this is a dude with some pop, and 5 home runs in 12 games, absolutely unheard of for a DSL guy, Ian. That's Xander Bogaerts hit 3. I think Devers hit 3.
It's something. It's he's someone who is definitely going to have to go up the rankings, and I think it's noteworthy that Kylie McDaniel and Eric Longenhagen over at Fangraphs actually had him as one of their risers in their updated midseason rankings, and they have better Dominican sources than we do. So,
which is none.
But the thing is, no one has Dominican sources really. Right. Like it's not heavily scouted except for the teams that are down there.
And the thing people have to realize is like the Gulf Coast League doesn't get scouted by some teams. Yeah,
the smart orgs do, but not.
Like there are some organizations that don't really scout short season. Never mind the Gulf Coast. They definitely don't scout the Gulf Coast League. More teams scout short season, but not all.
So it's one of those things that it's a hole in our coverage. We know that, but it's a hole in everyone's coverage. But it's interesting that it's noteworthy to me that he's someone they've pushed up, and he's now, I think, a 40 FE for them, which would put him in like the top 25 in the system ish. Right. Or I think they ranked him 24th or 25th. So
we're going to raise him not that much, I don't think, but he's
someone who we usually do with the guys in the Dominican, because you do have to take their numbers with a grain of salt because it's like glorified Legion ball over there in the DSL. But is like we'll watch it during the year. There'll be some guys in the back part of the list, and then we'll see who comes over for instructs, get a look at them there, and kind of adjust from there, kind of like what we did with Flores, Diaz, guys like that.
Yeah, so we've got Gonzalez is a guy who's raking, like I mentioned, with 5 home runs. Albert Feliz is an outfielder who's right behind him with 4 home runs. He's got 6 doubles to go with that as well. So his 10 extra base hits leads the DSL squads. He's hitting 300, 333, 660, 15 hits and 50 at bats. That said, he's got 17 strikeouts and 50 at bats. So K rate's a little higher than you like to see compared to 2 walks. So that's a little bit of more of a hacktastic approach for Feliz. But Badler on Feliz. Feliz did get a $400,000 signing bonus, as he said, in the mold of Gonzalez. Physical power hitting corner bat. 6'2", 200 with plus raw, he said, ability to drive the ball to all fields, and enough arm to play right. A couple of interesting guys there in Feliz and in Gonzalez who are showing out really early. The other big bonus hitter was Dominican outfielder Giancarlo Santana. He signed for $460K. He's more of an advanced approach type guy, kind of like we've read about Lopez, line drive hitter.
Manuel Margot's cousin.
What's that?
He's Manuel Margot's
that's right.
cousin. Yeah.
That's right. I forgot about that. And Giancarlo Santana struggling a little bit, 229, 325, 257, but only 8 strikeouts and 35 at-bats. Seems like a guy that's going to come along a little slower, maybe perhaps like Lopez. But a little bit weird where it's like, down is up is down, the big bonus baby, and Lopez not showing out. But you've got Lopez, Gonzalez, Feliz. One other guy I wanted to mention was shortstop Brainer Bonacci. And
I think it's Briner. But
Briner?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, he when he signed, he weighed about 140 pounds, but at the time Badler was writing in March, he was up to 5'9", 165. Smaller framed player lacking strength, but a baseball rat. Already has a plus arm that could jump a grade once you get stronger. Good hands and instincts at short. Switch hitter with line drive approach. He doesn't say anything about his speed, and maybe he should have, because Bonacci's got 10 stolen bases in 12 games. It was kind of funny, actually, today in our forum, and someone made a joke when Bonacci doubled. It's like, oh, what, did he not steal third? And then it turned out no, he actually, it turned out, did steal third.
Oh, it just wasn't in there yet.
It just wasn't in there yet, or he just hadn't looked. So, he's clearly running, but he's also hitting. I mean, he's got 22 hits at 51 at-bats, 431, 491, 647 line. He's got 4 doubles, 2 triples, and a home run. Home runs in the DSL are hard to come by. There's only one other player beyond those 3, and that's outfielder Darrell Belen, who moved from catcher. He's hitting 308, 362, 423. He was a guy who was in the DSL last year. But those are the only 4 guys who've hit home runs. So when you hear that Gonzalez has 5 and Feliz has 4, that's a lot. On the steals, there are guys who definitely run a lot and steal a decent number of bases, but it really does look like this year's IFA class could be a very good one. We were talking about last year's, or not last year's. It was 2 years ago that gave us Jimenez. I guess it would have been because this is last year's class. So the
2017-2018.
Yeah. So there was a class that included Diaz, Flores, and Gilberto Jimenez that looked like it was going to be. That's the 2017-18 class that you were talking about, as well as some of the arms we talked about. It looks like this next class behind them might have some interesting guys in Gonzalez, Feliz, Bonacci, and maybe some other guys. Catcher Neaspel Marcano, who got $350K out of Venezuela. He's hitting very well as well. Marcano's hitting 308, 333, 436 with 5 doubles. No home runs yet, but of course also catching, although he does have 4 errors already. So clearly a work in progress defensively there. But I think Gonzalez is the big mover here, but Feliz, Bonacci, and maybe Marcano are guys who I'm keeping my eye on.
Yeah, and I think, we're seeing the importance of the international market and what the Red Sox have done the last 2 years, just sign as many guys as possible, which I completely advocate as an approach, because who knows what they're going to develop into, see what sticks and go from there.
Yeah.
But we're seeing kind of part of the reason the system was so bad for a while, as we talked about, was they couldn't sign anyone in 2016, 2017 internationally, and then 2015, 16, they lost their top 5 guys.
Right.
So we're kind of seeing now what's happening when they're getting back into the international market, and the fruits of those labors are starting to come true.
Yeah, I should also mention one more guy. Elio Prado does have 2 home runs. He's in 326, 431, 581. He only got a 5-figure signing bonus. He only signed for $85,000. So he could be a smaller bonus guy who breaks out later. So he's also interesting as a player. So that's the class, yeah. So you know what, Ian? I think we can wrap it up at this point. If you will.
Do we have an email?
Oh, yeah, we do have an email. Thank you. I appreciate the reminder.
We always finish with emails. Come on, man.
We do. So we have one email. This email, actually, I should give a shout-out to Mark. Mark sent an email, Ian, right after we released the last episode.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Asking about Noah's song.
Okay.
So I replied to him and said, hey, Mark, why don't you go and listen to the podcast we just recorded? If you still have questions, let us know. And he actually emailed back a couple of days ago and said, hey, I listened to the podcast, and you guys pretty much answered all my questions. Thanks so much for the email. But then he had a couple of follow-up questions.
Okay.
So he said he has a couple of new questions regarding the new Fangraphs rankings, which you've alluded to. He mentioned that Fangraphs gave Jarren Duran a 55-55, so that's present and future grades, for raw power. Is that just a mistake, or does he actually have decent raw power that he could possibly tap into with a swing change? That was interesting to me. I'm pulling up to, as I see you are, the full line that the Fangraphs guys gave Duran was they did give him a 35 present, 50 future hit tool, a 30 present, 45 future game power tool, and they did give him a 55 present raw. I haven't seen a BP in. Have you?
I've seen it. Yeah. I mean, there's raw power to the pull side. I think that's a little optimistic. Like, I would have probably gone like average raw. I think it's going to be like 35, 40 game.
Yeah.
But I kind of look at it that if I'm him, he doesn't need to hit home runs for it to play. Like, he can just hit balls in the gap. And if I'm him, I'd rather hit hard line drives and just run for forever than risk hitting a bunch of pop-ups to sell out for power. That's just personally me. But, I mean, it's like, I think 34, it's a little aggressive for me, but I can maybe if they, depend on, I don't know who they talk to or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I can believe that it's not out of the realm of possibility, I'll say.
Yeah.
It's not crazy.
Yeah, I mean, they mentioned him as a guy that could jump into the top 100 for them as well. So, but it's interesting. That did surprise me as well. I don't know that I see future 55. I mean, it's 55 raw. They only say 45 game.
We have him as like 40 game in his future. So,
so they're not that different than what we have him.
No, we have him as 30 right now, 40 future.
Yeah.
So, and they have 30, 45. So it's not a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mark's second question said, Fangraphs ranked Nick Decker at 6 in the system and said there were strong reports about his bat coming out of Instructs. Have you guys heard similar reports, and is he someone who could possibly slide in the 6 to 8 range with a strong season in Lowell? Ian, you from Instructs, had good reports
people
on
liked
him.
him. Yeah, we talked about it, I think, last year after Instructs. People liked him coming out of there. He obviously he didn't make a full season team, but as we talked about earlier, it's not the end of the world. And I've liked what I've seen thus far in Lowell. So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we like what we see. He didn't make Greenville, and Brandon Howlett did, which to me does say something as two guys who were drafted in last year's high school class who are the same age. Howlett has struggled a bit in Greenville. Howlett's hitting 250, 351, 350, but
he got off to a terrible start, so he's slowly recovering.
Well, he is and he isn't. Let me just pull up Brandon Howlett. Yeah, I mean, Howlett, if you do the game log, in April he did struggle. Looking at the splits, in April he hit 203, 263, 304. In May, 244, 346, 344. In June, 341, 482. 439.
Yeah, it takes time to get used to the level.
And if you actually look at him since May 18th, 298, 394, 405. So not a ton of pop yet, but I mean, that's still 35 strikeouts and 104 plate appearances. That's higher than I'd like to see the strikeouts.
Yeah.
And he's still striking out a lot in June.
But he's walking a lot more too.
In June, it's 19 strikeouts and 56 plate appearances.
12 walks, yeah.
Which is 34%.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the strikeout rate needs to come down.
And the average of balls in play is 583.
It takes some time to just I'm not that concerned about him right now.
Yeah, I'm not saying I'm concerned, but I'm just saying, you'd like to see him maybe perform a little better. But my point was going to be they trusted him to go to to the South Atlantic League, and they didn't send Nick Decker there as the second rounder. So part of that, obviously, like I said, was that he played last year, whereas Decker didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But it's
I mean, I think where he is right now, like with a good year, he could push into like the edge of the top 10. But that's I think like right around for me, like anything after from like 6 to like 13, 14, 15, 16, like that whole range is more or less the same to me right now. Like you could order it whatever you want.
I think we're going to see some shake up on June 1 or July 1, especially once we have players like Cannon and maybe Lugo.
But I'm not taking into account the new guys. But yeah, like for me though, they're like there's a significant drop off after 4. Then Groom's in his own little world, as we've talked about, because of the situation there. And then after that, it's pretty similar, like rankings wise to me. Like,
if you want to tell me that you want to rank Gilberto Jimenez over CJ Chatham, I'm not really going to argue.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like anywhere from like 6 to 16 to me is like a tier. And frankly, there are a couple guys in the 6 to 16 range right now who I would have below in a different tier. But that's just like personal preference to me. But yeah, there's like 6 or 7 guys who I could make a case for between 6 and 13 or so, and Decker's one of them.
Yep. So, all right. Well, thanks for the emails, I guess, Mark. We appreciate it. And again, podcast@soxprospects.com. If you want to send us an email with a question, with a thought, with a topic you want us to discuss, we want to hear about it. So send it over, podcast@soxprospects.com. Ian, let's wrap it up, man. We want to thank you, everybody, for listening. We want to send a thank you to our podcast editor, Podcast Joe Tetrault. Follow Ian on Twitter @Ian Cundall. That's IANCUNDALL. Follow me @SP Chris Hatfield, and make sure you're following the site account @Sox Prospects. Again, the Sox Prospects donation drive is on. Please, if you can support the site, you can do it two ways. Patreon.com/Sox Prospects to make a donation per episode of the podcast in order to unlock certain perks. And you can also help support us by going to soxprospects.com/donate to make a one-time donation. We'll appreciate any level of support. Obviously, a little more is always better, but hey, whatever you can do, it helps the site. Don't think that, you shouldn't give because you can't give, $500 or something. If you want to give $500, great. But, whatever you're willing to give, we'd appreciate it at any level. So thank you. Everybody who has supported us, and for those who are thinking about it, hopefully you consider it, and we'll appreciate your support if you decide to come around and do it. So for Ian, I'm Chris. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back in your eardrums very soon.